Welcome to the Birds and the Bees podcast. This is Braxton Dutson.
That's the key. People aren't talking about it.
Everybody needs to know that porn is not a documentary.
It's not like if we don't talk to kids about sex and sexuality, they're not going to hear about it. They're just not going to hear about it from us.
They have tons of questions, they just don't know how to ask them.
All you have to do is be one chapter ahead. You don't have to know everything. Just one chapter ahead of wherever your child is.
Welcome to the Birds and Bees episode 22. I'm your host, Braxton Dutson, and as always, I've got a wonderful show for you. This one is going to be going out to all those parents out there who want to learn how to talk to their kids more about sex. Maybe you're curious about how to start the conversation, not 100% sure on what ways might be best to be able to make the conversation not so much of a presentation, if you will, or a lecture, but to really have a conversation with them and to have multiple conversations. So I'm really excited to bring you Kim Cook. Now, Kim Cook is actually a sex educator and a nurse. We're getting a double whammy for this one, which is really exciting because she has a lot of information about the physical side of things and the anatomy, as well as being a sex educator. She's merging both of those worlds. So we brought her on. She'd written a book called Teen World Confidential. And she talks about the book that she's written, and she talks a lot about how to help parents prepare to have sex talks with their kids, no matter what the topic may be, whether it's sexual health, whether it's sexual desires, what's happening in their body, being able to reflect on the talks that they would like to have with their kids. Because, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of parents have a lot of feelings of feeling inadequate, not quite sure what to say to their kids, and may have not had the talk before in their life. And she's got 5 tips for us on the ways that we can have these conversations. She has this article that we go over with the 5 tips that she gives for parents when they're talking to their kids about sex, as well as one of my favorite things about Kim is that she loves to bring humor into these conversations. If you think that it's got to be wah, 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 the whole Peanuts and Charlie Brown experience with their teacher, it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, it is better if it is not that way. Let's make this conversation something that can be kind of fun, a little bit more lighthearted, introducing some humor, with also keeping it in, the reverence of the seriousness of the matter, that it's not, something to be completely joked about, but also that you don't need to make this something so serious that kids aren't going to be willing to talk to you about it. Anyways, we get into all that, and there's a lot more to come on this episode. I'm really excited that you're here with us on episode 22. And if you find this information helpful, I encourage you to think of someone that you can share this with that might be able to benefit from the conversation that we have today as well. Share this. I encourage you to do something to share your experience with the podcast and how it's been helping you or how you've enjoyed it. Without further ado, let's get to the interview with Kim Cook. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being on the show, Kim.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
So this has been really fun because me and Kim found each other on Twitter, and Kim had come out with this book, and it's all about talking to your children and how to have the talk. And I was like, we've got to have Kim on Birds and Bees. This is the bread and butter of what we want parents to know. So I'm excited to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. We have a lot to talk about.
Yes, some great topics today. So Kim, tell me a little bit. You're a registered nurse. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about, so being a registered nurse, you're also a certified health education specialist. Tell me about how you got into that field and how you ended up getting, certified.
Well, a lot of people ask me that question because they look at me like, you do what? So I know it's kind of crazy, but actually my journey begins a long, long time ago when I was about 18, 19 years old. I was going back I was in college I was studying to be a nurse. And while I was in nursing school, I thought, well, I'm going to volunteer for Planned Parenthood for a while. And so I became a birth control educator. And I loved it. It was a great position. But again, I was young and not very experienced. So I was just that girl that gave information. But one day we had a young girl come in. She was about 12 years old, seeking birth control. And again, I wasn't that much older than her. But I thought, wow, that's kind of young to be looking for birth control. Of course, I gave her the information, and then she moved on down the line to the professionals, and I'm sure they took care of her in whatever way that they did. But I just did my job. So I graduated from nursing school shortly thereafter, and I became a maternity nurse. And one
Really?
of my yep, I did. And one of my very first patients was a young woman she was about 18 or 19 years old, giving birth to baby number 4. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I have a young girl, 12, coming in for birth control, and I have an older teen giving birth. And then when I left about 18 months later, she was back. And I thought, okay, there's some kind of a disconnect here.
With another baby on the way.
With another baby.
Okay.
She was coming back to deliver another baby.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I was actually expecting myself. By then I was married and I was expecting my first daughter. And so I quit the profession, essentially. I raised 3 daughters, and then till the youngest was about 5th grade or whatever. And I went back to work. I worked as an elementary school nurse for about 8 years. I loved it. One of the best jobs I ever had. Just loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But after 8 years, I was getting a little bored, decided to go back to school. So yes, I was that token old lady in class in the university, taking classes again. And I became a certified middle and high school health teacher.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, which was great. So I had some great opportunities being in the classroom. For both middle and high school, I had a couple of long-term sub positions. And while I was doing that, I took an exam to become a certified health education specialist, which means that I just have a little bit more of an edge on how to do research and other aspects of health education.
Mm-hmm.
I also, when I was in college for the second round, I earned my certification as an LGBT in LGBT studies.
Gotcha.
So with this certification, it just gave me a little bit better understanding of the LGBTQ community and some of the issues that they face. So I have those kind of things in my back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and I was in the classroom, and it was great. I loved talking to the kids. They were amazing. They were fabulous. But I realized, and they want to ask questions all the time, but we're only talking to the kids for like 2 weeks out of literally 4 years of high school health education. They get like sex ed for like 2 weeks. Like,
wow,
this is ridiculous. And they're getting in 9th or 10th grade, and they're not really becoming sexually active until a little bit older, 11th, 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to remember anything you tell them.
No.
So I'm like, okay, we've got a little problem here. But as I'm going through my profession here, I'm going, wait a minute, the real missing piece here are the parents.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who are the gatekeepers. They are the ones that see their kids every single day, not just for 2 weeks out of 4 years. They're the ones that need to be having these conversations, because they're the ones who can give the value systems that they have within their own family, that knows their kids, their little nuances and how to approach their kids in different aspects. So I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to go for the parents.
Mm-hmm. So you went right for the parents.
Went right for the parents.
Yeah,
you know what?
right
if
on.
we can make change with the parents, we can change, what's being taught in the schools. We can change the kids' attitudes towards sex and relationships, because the parents matter.
Yeah, starting right at the source. 100%.
Yeah, starting right at the source. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not always easy, but we really need to, as parents and as adults, to take a chance and get out there and talk about it.
Uh-huh. Completely. So that's how you got into, all right, now I want to be able to talk to the parents. I'm going to go straight to the source. And going straight to the source involved blogging, from my understanding. And then from blogging, you started this book called Teen World Confidential. And I'm curious about the name, Teen World Confidential. Tell me about how you came up with the name and kind of what's in the book.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to share. So Teen World Confidential, well, that's actually the name of my website. Mm-hmm. And I collaborated with another woman. We were brainstorming ideas, what do I name my project? And it's, it's somewhat confidential that, you're talking about sexuality and the issues that that young people and adults are faced with when it comes to sexuality. And it can be somewhat confidential, and we're kind of trying to get into the teens' world so that we know how to talk to these young people, so that we know how to approach them. So Teen World Confidential is what we ended up with. And that's the name of my website. So when it came time to name the book, that's really hard. Let me just tell you, it's really hard to title a book.
It sounds
so
like
I asked her, it's really impossible. But, I was asking a lot of people, and I finally asked my publisher, I go, what do you think? And he goes, well, duh, Teen World Confidential. It's perfect. So I subtitled it 5 minute topics to open conversation about sex and relationships. And I like that word open because it means that we're not only opening up conversation, but we're being open in how we talk about kids. So it has kind of a double entendre.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I came about doing that. And the book itself, what I like about it is it's just quick snippets. You know, there are a lot of amazing parenting books out there. Actually, I'm going to take that back. There are some parenting books. We don't have as many as we need. We need more out there. But most of the books that you read that are parenting books, they are very good, but they're from page 1 to page whatever, 200, and you have to read it all in one fell swoop to get the message. Well, I don't know. I remember being a busy parent, sitting in the car, waiting for my kid to be done with soccer or dance, and just needing something to read real quick. And that's what this book is. You can pick it up, you can read 3 pages, put it down, and you could just flip to another section. You don't have to read it cover to cover. You pick up and read what you want to know.
Is that kind of go with the 5-minute conversations that it's built along the lines of 5-minute conversations, you can pick it up and also go 5 minutes in reading it and then keep it going?
That's exactly the intent. Exactly.
Soccer mom
They're
style.
just 5-minute reads. Soccer mom style. Exactly. Exactly.
Perfect. So it sounds like the thing that I've gotten of all the research I've been doing about the book and stuff, I don't have it just yet, but I'm excited to read it.
It's fun.
I get that we've got some really good humor in there. And so that's one thing I'm really excited about is introducing humor into this kind of a feeling of awkwardness that a lot of parents get. So I'm curious about how maybe in the book, but also when you're presenting, how do you end up helping parents prepare to have these sex talks with their kids?
Well, that is a really good question. Humor is very important, but we can talk about that in a little bit as well. But one of the first things I want parents to really think about before they go in and address their kids, of course, I want to back up just a little, saying that these conversations start when you have a newborn. They really do.
Yes.
You start at birth. And so, of course, you're not so nervous talking to a newborn because they don't really understand what you're saying. So that's why it's really good to practice.
Yeah, they're just hanging out.
They're just hanging out. So when you're changing their diaper, you say, oh, this is your penis, this is your vulva. So you get used to saying those words. We don't use those words in society. We just don't. We use, I don't know what we use, boobs and I don't know.
The bummy and all the other different.
All those other, And every family has their own little name for their little, body parts. But we need to start using proper terminology. And there's a few reasons behind that. One of it is that we're comfortable saying it ourselves so that our kids and that the conversation will keep growing. As the kids grow, our conversation will keep growing and we'll be used to using this terminology and it won't be so weird. The other reason is it's really important that kids know their body parts. So if in the unfortunate circumstances, something horrible were to happen to them, like inappropriate touching, they can tell authorities or healthcare providers where they were touched in a language that everybody understands.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what a penis is. There's no confusion about that. So we need to start that from the start. So having said that, moving on to other things, as your child gets older and your conversations get more serious, you need to keep in mind, where are you coming? Where are you coming from? What has been your past experience when it comes to sexuality? And dating and relationships, and what are you bringing to the table when it comes to these conversations? So you may have had a really unfortunate situation, or you may have had a beautiful, fantastic relationship with your current partner. These are all things that are going to be communicated to your child, even without words. You might communicate it with body language or the way you roll your eyeballs. Men, they're just, just the way you present yourself. You can really send a message that you're not realizing you're doing.
Oh, completely.
And guilty, I've done it before too. We're not perfect people. We all make mistakes. We all have our preconceived ideas. But as long as we understand where we're coming from, then we can catch ourselves and going, wait, but what message am I sending my child when I talk like this? So it's really important that you are aware.
Well, and the way that the way that you monitored that, where you roll in your eyes, like, oh my gosh, guys that do this, that's all guys want is sex. And or even just like, boys will be boys.
Right.
that even if I keep talking while I'm doing it because that's how my body language rolls, and we're on a podcast. But if you could see the video, what Kim is doing is rolling her eyes and kind of throwing her shoulders up, and the arms are moving out. She's like, just very nonchalant, like this is just how life is. And if that's what you're showing to your daughters, to your sons, they're picking up on that. I love that you're putting that out. So anything that we're doing, we're teaching, even if we're not talking about it.
We're role modeling all the time and mentoring all the time. Even when you're talking, and we've all done this, when you're having a glass of wine with your girlfriend and you think your kid's already in bed at night and you're, ragging on whatever and you're talking, your kid's hearing you and they're listening to you and they're absorbing some of this, hidden message. Mm-hmm. So you're always mentoring, you're always, they're watching you and they're learning a lot from the things that you say and the actions that you present. Yeah.
And I love the thing that you brought up where you say we got to reflect on what your experience has been growing up. Did your parents talk about sex? Was it open? Were your parents openly kissing in front of you? Was it all behind doors? Did they say no? What was your experience? And if it was very open and you're like, I don't want to talk about that, you may be more like, I want to be more conservative. If they didn't talk about it, you might be like, I just want them to talk about everything all the time. And you can overbear, you can underbear, and it's really important for you to check in with yourself and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? And if I'm doing it like this, how am I checking with my child on how they're receiving all of this? Is my message getting across?
That's a good point, too. Checking how your kid is receiving it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I think that's a big part of being able to do that. And I love that if we're not reflecting on it, we may think, well, we're perfect. We got to figure it out. Why wouldn't we?
Absolutely. I'm parent of the year.
Parent of the year because I'm not doing it like mom and dad did.
Right. And it's funny. And most parents that I talk to, their parents never talked to them. They never had any conversations. I didn't have any conversations.
Yeah, this is a new generation.
It is a totally new generation. Thank God, that we are a little bit more open to talk about it. Of course, we're kind of forced into it based on everything that's in media lately. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what we're seeing on the news. One of the good things is recently since I graduated from my second degree, gay rights has really taken off, and it's been fabulous. What a great conversation piece. Yeah. But then we talk about the Me Too movement. Great talking piece, but sad that we have to actually have this conversation.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So media is great, as far as starting those conversations as well. That is a new thing that this generation of parents has got to deal with.
Definitely. So this generation of parents, because they don't have these conversations as much or didn't have this modeled to them, there wasn't a role model. Well, many people may have had it, but the vast majority that I'm seeing as well didn't have this conversation growing up. And so how can parents address their feelings of feeling inadequate? There's a lot of people who are like, I don't know how to talk about this. Why? How am I supposed to do this if I was never taught? And now I'm sitting here and you're telling me I need to talk about sex with my kid, and I can't even say penis or vulva.
Right. And besides that, I learned how to have sex without my parents talking to me, so why should I bother talking to my kids?
Yeah. I learned they can too.
They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Right. Well, really? Do you want them to figure it out like that?
And that's where the reflecting comes into as well. Because if you're reflecting back and going, oh, yeah, I figured it out. However, there's shame here, and I hated that, and I don't want to experience that, and I don't want my child to experience that with a boyfriend or this with a girlfriend or the same mistakes that I feel I made or that I don't want them to experience. Reflect on that.
And that's one of the misconceptions too, is if we talk to kids about sex, or if our schools teach our kids about sex, and oh my God, it's going to make them really horny. I want to go out and have sex. In fact, what studies have shown over and over and over again is comprehensive sex ed, which I will iterate, says abstinence is, of course, the best option, but it does inform of other ways to keep our young people and adults safe. But studies have shown over and over and over again, if we talk to our young people about sex, sexuality, relationships, consent, respect, all that stuff, they're more likely to wait, and they're going to have less sexual partners, And it's just better all around. So the more information young people get, the more likely they are to use birth control, to not become pregnant, to have fewer sexual partners, and to wait longer before they have sex. You've got to have this conversation. So parents who feel uncomfortable about starting the conversation because it's just going to get the idea in their head, I hate to tell you, they already got the idea in their head. They've got hormones raging. They're listening to music. They're watching movies. They're watching TV. They already know there's something going on here.
Oh, yeah. Sex is
have to
just pouring in.
Oh, there's no escape. I mean, I grew up on the Brady Bunch, so I did not have the same thing that the young people have now, and my kids had now too.
Uh-huh.
So it's a different world. But like you said before, there are other reasons parents are afraid to start the conversation. One is they don't, like you said, they feel inadequate. They don't really know what they're talking about, and they don't really know, am I saying it right? Well, my response to that is none of us know it all. That's why there's researchers. We're still learning all the time. So don't feel like you have to know it all. Nobody does. I don't. That's why I'm in front of the computer all the day. I'm learning every day more and more things. So it's okay not to know. In fact, it's a great experience with your child. If your child asks you something and you're not really sure of the answer, say, I don't really know. Let's go to this resource and look it up together and learn together. And it's great because then there's a couple lessons there. You can teach them what scientifically accurate resources, medically accurate resources are, like Planned Parenthood is a great one, CDC. There are some great resources in it. You can teach your child, what a good resource is online. That's something that we need to teach. It is health literacy.
So
you would be doing that.
Where they can go to get information.
Good information, real information, not like a porn site, for example.
Yes.
But, Planned Parenthood, I just love Planned Parenthood site. They have so much information. Amaze.org, that's another one that has great information, great conversation starters.
Amaze.org?
Yeah, AMAZE.org. And they have, I'll tell you, I know we're going off topic here, but parents parents should know about this site. So it's, I know Advocates for Youth, they have a part in that as well. So this is a site where parents can go, and young people, and they have these little snippets of cartoons that explain about different aspects of sexuality. And again, when I talk about sexuality, it's everything from penises to consent and everything in between. And they have videos about sexting and computer usage and friendship, and you can click on that. They're 3-minute videos, and you can just have a conversation with your kid like that. And they're just really, really awesome videos.
That takes me back to episode 4 that we did. So one of the first ones we did here on Birds and Bees podcast, Alicia Worthington, she said, you just got to be one chapter ahead when you're talking about sex.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Yeah. And unfortunately with media, sometimes they might be a little ahead of us, and that's okay. Just act cool. Like you've heard it all before and you know what they're talking about. And then when they're gone, quick Google it. But, it's all good. It's all good. And, going back to what we were saying. So if you don't know, it's okay to say to your child, I really don't know how that is. But there are some great resources out there. And parents, you actually know more than you think you know. They're going to ask you questions, and the kids, I've been in the high schools and I've asked kids, what are some things you want to know? And a lot of times questions come up, the mechanics of sex. They want to know how do you do it, which is great, except I hope they're not going to porn to find out, but I'll let you handle that. That's a whole nother Oprah show. But I forgot what I was just saying.
So you've been in high schools, and they're asking, what are the mechanics of sex?
Yeah, that's one question. And that asks sometimes, and that might be a little hard for parents to answer, but actually it's just biology. So you can answer that one because you've probably been there and done that. Yeah. But other questions that they want to know, what they really, really, really want to know is about relationships. How do I know if I'm in love? How can I tell if this is a friendship? How do I know if I'm ready to have sex? How do I tell my boyfriend I don't want to have sex? They want to know that kind of stuff. We're afraid they're going to want to know, oh my God, penis and vagina. That's not really what they want to know. They want to know from the heart, what's the relationship? Totally. And so we can have those conversations. And that's, again, where modeling comes in. How do you and your partner get along? Or if you're not married, you're dating, whatever your situation is, your friendships. I mean, everywhere we go is a relationship, family, friends, spouses, whomever. They're all relationships, and they're watching and learning from you.
Yeah. They're very much, they're always watching, and they're always asking these questions and seeing where can I get the information that I'm looking for? And if they gauge off of you that you're not a safe place to go to, then they're not going to come to you. Google is more than willing to give all of the information that they want to know. And the majority of the time, again, they going maybe on a tantric. Going on a tantrum. I'm not even saying that right. Well, we're going to go off that with pornography. With pornography, essentially, they are going to be learning from pornography. And there's a really interesting article that I read on the New York Times just last week with Debbie Herberneck and a couple other researchers that have been going about saying, like, what are teenagers learning from pornography? Mm. And they interviewed these teenagers, and they're like, well, it seems like the girls really like this. Well, it looks like boys want to do this all the time, and I don't know because I don't really want to, but how do I say no? And I don't get this. There's still confusion in pornography. And as they were going through this class of like, this is what porn is, and this is how, even Al Vernacchio, when he talks about saying, hey, ask them, what do you think they're doing 20 minutes after the set's over? Are they in Walmart shopping? Are they picking up their kids from daycare? What are they doing? Because it's so glamorized that it's like, oh my gosh, these people want sex all the time, and they're always ready and willing for it. And it's not viewed as a job, and it's not viewed as, and they're seeing it as this documentary of like, this is how people have sex, and that's what men's penises look like, and that's what. So these conversations, the main thing that if I could come across to any parent is if we have these conversations early on and you're talking to them and you preemptively say, hey, this is pornography. You're going to run into it. It is not a documentary. It is for adult entertainment. You're not an adult. It is not how the majority of people are experiencing sexuality. And let's talk about a value. We don't look at pornography, or, this is something we wait till we're an adult, or things along those lines. If you have questions, I want to talk about that. And just the fact that you're talking about it is allowing them to go, oh, this is super uncomfortable, maybe. However, mom, dad is talking to me about it, so I can now ask them this, because even though it's a little uncomfortable, they're giving me correct information. I trust them.
Yes. I think you're absolutely right.
Wonderful.
Opening up those gates, those doors to conversation, so important.
Yeah. So when these parents are not 100% sure, I guess coming back to what we were saying is, if they're not 100% sure how to bring up the conversation or address their own feelings, it's a great time to, at least in my thoughts, it's be able to talk to a friend or talk to someone, practice what's bothering you or what's hard for you to say. If it's verbiage, if it's bringing up the conversation, if it's dealing with, my son is going to be like, oh, yeah, mom, yeah, dad, I don't have to talk about this and I don't want to.
They will get that. I guarantee they will get that. Mm-hmm. So if they prepare themselves for that, but know that they're listening. And just the fact that you're offering, your kids are going, okay, mom and dad, they want to talk to me. They're there if I need them. Mm-hmm. And the other resource too, if they aren't super comfortable talking with mom and dad, or mom and dad aren't comfortable talking to them, it's okay to have a trusted adult. If there's someone else, like there's an Aunt Sandy or Aunt Lee or somebody, mm-hmm. that you say, you know what, if you're really uncomfortable, go to Aunt Sandy and she'll be more than happy to talk to you.
Gotcha.
To have that other person. But you just need to have an adult in their life that will give them accurate information, because we all know that their peers aren't doing it.
No, they're learning from, it is the blind leading the blind and trying to figure out what, where they're going. Oh, I saw this in porn. Oh, my friend said this. Well, this was my experience. Exaggeration. And, but I'm curious, do you have any suggestions when you do run into a teen that is like, or even a kid that's like, I do not want to talk about this. I'm not going to. And even though we know they're listening, you're still like, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with bringing up sex topics.
I know. Well, you have to be just really sneaky. And so what that means is, when you're in the car, because they're pretty much imprisoned in the car for at least 4 minutes while you take them somewhere. If there's a song on the radio, or, you can say something like, what did he just say? And, was that appropriate? Did I just hear that right? You can just little snippets. They're going to get this sense of values and relationships. Or you can say, I overheard, your friend John say that he was thinking about dating Mary. How do you think about that? And, and that can, just little conversation pieces like that, to sit down and have the talk is no more. They're not going to sit down and have a talk with you. It's just not going to happen. They might. I mean, some kids might, but for the most part, you have to be sneaky. You have to give them little 1 or 2 liners throughout their life.
And talk about multiplying and compounding the awkwardness. Like, let's just throw everything into one talk. Whoa.
Oh my God. Oh, even I would find that overwhelming. It's a lot of stuff to talk about.
That is a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's talk about all the nuances of sex and this one over here and that one over there. That's right. That's a lot of pressure.
That is a lot of pressure. And I'm also afraid of the too short of conversation where a parent might find out that, their son is having sex and all they do is throw a condom at him and say, be safe, and walk away. You need more than that, because you want them physically safe, but you want them mentally and emotionally safe as well. How do you feel about this person that you are going to engage in a relationship with? Where do you see it ending? If you're in a heterosexual relationship, what if your partner becomes pregnant, and, all these different, or STIs, you have to help them. And they, thing is, we would love to choose for our kids what they should and shouldn't do, but it's got to come intrinsically. They have to make these decisions for themselves. You can manipulate their thoughts by the questions that you ask. What do you think? How do you think? Where do you think this could end up? Don't shame them. Don't threaten them. What were you thinking? Have them think through this. How do you think this could end? Or, in what ways might this go a little better? How can you make your partner feel more appreciated? And it doesn't have to be sexually. Help them think these things through, because their prefrontal cortex is still developing. They can't really think through a lot of this stuff. And if we can help them get this process going, they can own more of this intrinsically, and that will carry them on through adulthood.
And it's all just being able to have these small snippet conversations.
Just little snippets, one-liners. If they want to take it further, great. But it's a great opportunity to use any kind of media, social media, whatever, to start a conversation. Now, we've had plenty of it recently on TV. That we can have these conversations. And again, going back to the porn thing, one of the issues with porn, I know that you're aware, is how women are treated in pornography when it comes to respect and consent.
Yeah.
And we've got that now on media, on our TV all the time. And we are just ripe for those conversations with the Me Too movement. And so to me, this is something I'm passionate about right now, is the Me Too and raising young boys and girls, of course, too, but because of our social constructs on boys and girls, teaching boys and girls that it's okay for boys to cry and have feelings and to be considerate of other people. We've got to change that language, and that starts again at birth. So, we can always change it now. Any age can change it.
Age can change it. I love it.
Yeah.
So I was reading over some of the blogs that you've got, and I love the 5 tips that you give to parents with talking to their children, or how to bring it up, or how to talk. Could you share those 5 tips with us?
Yes. Truthfully, there's about 165 tips on talking to parents about sex and relationships, but here are some that I do find that are pretty important. When you're talking to your child, you need to be open, you need to be honest, and you need to be non-judgmental. So, it's really important. Of course, you need to be open, because your kids need to know that they can come to you and ask you anything. If they ask you a question and you're uncomfortable and say, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it, well, you just shut it down. And they're probably not going to come back to you. And being honest, of course, they want to know what you really think and how you feel, and non-judgmental. So like if they come up to you and say something like, my friend Joe thinks he might be gay, and all of a sudden you shut it down. Well, I don't believe in people being gay. Well, okay, you just shut that one down too, because what if he's trying to tell you something, or he really is concerned for a friend? So you need to be non-judgmental, honest and open, and non-shaming too. Make sure that you're not making them feel bad for the questions that they ask. Another important thing is listen. You know what? Here I am blabbing all, in this whole conversation too, but When you're sitting talking to your kid, you can have an opening comment, but let the kid fly. From at that point on, it's up to him or her. They're going to talk and say what they want to say, and you need to sit back and listen. You're going to learn more about your child by listening than talking. Mm-hmm. And you can hear kind of, they might not come out and say exactly what they're thinking, but if you watch them with their body language and what they're thinking, you can learn a lot about your child, and then you'll know how to approach them at the next little 1 minute, one-liner conversations.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I like the piece that being able to listen is going to give you a lot more information. And I think that throws back to what we were talking about a little bit, where you were like, oh, I don't know what to say. Well, when you don't know what to say, ask a question.
Yeah. Open-ended question, too.
Open-ended question, yeah. Yes or no questions pull you down an alley you don't want to be down.
They do. And those are much easier to ask, so you've got to be a little creative in your thinking. Uh-huh. So, maybe some quiet night, you and your significant other, if you have one, or you and a friend over wine, sit down and write some open-ended questions. Have fun with it, because you don't have to ask them all. Yeah. But you can have a lot of fun and over wine, and just, figure out some open-ended questions that you can have in your back pocket that you guys can ask your kids.
Perfect.
So, and that's another thing too. If you do have a person, we talked about, a family member, but even if you have a girlfriend that whose your child is always at your house playing with their kid or something, tell them that it's okay to have these conversations with your young person too, that you're on the same page with your value system and
gotcha.
Stuff. So that's another option.
Nice.
Another thing is, especially when kids are young, but if your child is asking you a question, answer their question, not answer what they're asking, not what you think they're answering.
Ooh.
For example, Mom, where did I come from? Well, you start sweating and panicking like, oh my God, my kid is 8 years old and I have to tell them about penis and vagina sex. Oh my God. Well, no, actually, they just want to know what hospital they were born at. So just ask them a question. Make sure that say, oh, tell me, I'm not sure what you mean. What information can I give you? Or however you want to phrase it. Mm-hmm. And then when you're done answering the question that they have actually asked, say, did I answer your question? Is there anything more that you would like to know? Because if you go on and pontificate for 25 minutes, you've lost them. You got them for 30 seconds and give them the information they want and they're going to be done unless they want more.
Totally. And then, that goes to someone else I was talking to, Kristen Hodson. She calls those s'more conversations where it's like, wow, I love these conversations. And this is a s'more conversation. It means later on you're going to get s'more.
Yes.
And this is great. You asked this wonderful question. And right now we've got a little bit here and we're going to have some more later on. How does that sound? And like, oh, okay. Depending on what your comfortability is. Or also if you're like, I have no idea how to explain blowjob or whatever it may be. But as we're talking to a small child, if they're like, why does the penis this? And you're like, oh man, s'more.
I love that concept. I wish I thought of that myself. I think that's brilliant. Exactly. Tell them just a little bit and say, we'll talk about this some more. We'll talk about this later. I think that's brilliant.
Totally.
I love that concept. Perfect. A couple other things that we can do is make sure that...
I think that we're at, was it number 4? We've been... going all over all this.
we have been, and it's great. We kind of talked about this before. It's okay if you don't know an answer to a question because we can't know everything. Uh-huh. And as we talked about, there are some great resources. I mentioned amaze.org and Planned Parenthood, but there are also some other wonderful organizations. One resource that I would recommend is Girlology. It's an online site, and their focus is on puberty. So if you have questions about puberty, that's good. They're finding, too, even grown adults don't always know, especially women, their own reproductive system. So it's something that we need to make sure we teach young people. They get a little bit in the school and sometimes a lot, but it's a lot to remember. So, just young girls and boys, make sure that they understand their reproductive anatomy. And Girlology does a really nice job of that. And then the CDC, I love the CDC because there's
what is the CDC?
Based. Oh, the Centers for Disease Control.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
that's one I hear all the time.
I love the CDC because I with my background, and I have most of my family. My husband's a veterinarian. I have a daughter in infectious disease, and I've got another daughter who's a nurse.
Oh, wow.
And we have one in fashion too, so we all look good. But we're all science oriented, so we're all fact based, and we like to have the research behind what we know. So that's why we love the CDC.
Wonderful.
Another resource is PFLAG. So these are for parents and friends of lesbians and gays, and this is a great resource if you have a parent who might be entering this arena and they don't really know how to approach their child if they're identifying as LGBT or Q. This is a great resource as well.
Nice.
So, yeah. So there are some great resources out there, and I have a lot more resources on my website that they can access if they're interested, if any parents are interested.
Great. Tell me, what is the website is teenconfidential.com?
Yeah, it's teenworldconfidential.com.
Teen World, yeah.
Teen World. It's just like the book. Yeah, no worries. And then they can also find me on Instagram and Twitter. And actually, I've been doing a lot more of that lately, and Facebook, because I'm realizing video is a lot easier than writing. So I've been doing a lot of that lately. So if you want to see me talk live and in person, you can go to my Facebook page. I've got a bunch of stuff up there.
That's great.
Yeah. But one thing is humor.
Humor. Let's go to the humor. I'm excited for this and how you bring this into Teen World Confidential in the book and how you have done it with your own girls.
Yeah, humor is really important because it's already kind of a weird subject to talk about. And, I think a lot of parents would get kind of freaked out. Oh my God, my kids want to talk to me about sex. Well, you know what? Make it light and fun. Make it something that you guys want to talk about and can laugh about. There are, if you bring humor into it, you kind of level the playing field a little bit. You're not giving the lecture. You're not the mom who says, and this is how we use a condom and this is when we do it. Instead, you're bringing it down that you can have kind of a funny conversation like, and if you have a condom on hand, which I recommend, and you can show them what it looks like, you can do all kinds of funny things with it and play with it and just kind of make it fun and light. Sex, when you're with your partner in bed anyway, sometimes it's nice to have a little fun in bed, right? You want your kids to have fun and enjoy sex and make it a very sex positive experience. And I think that starts with the conversations with parents, with your parents and their kids, as you're making it fun and light. You're not making it so serious and scary because when you have sex, you're going to get an STI and die and your life is over. Come on. I mean, look around. Your kids are thinking, I think, you guys had sex and you're still alive, so I don't think so. We're telling them all these horrible things about sex, and we're living proof that it's not that bad.
Yeah. So
we have to use humor, evens the playing field a little bit, and it makes it more fun to talk about. But there are a few rules about that. Some topics aren't funny. For one thing, we got to make sure some topics we can't laugh about, such as teen dating violence. I think we have to be really careful about topics like that, or rape. Can't even fathom how you can make a joke about that.
Yeah.
So we need to keep that serious. Also, if it's not funny to the child, it's not funny. If you're making fun of a friend who might identify as gay, I'm sorry, that's just not funny. If it's not funny to the child, it's not funny. Don't minimize your child's feelings with a joke. If your kid comes to you expressing, I think I might be falling in love with somebody. Oh my gosh, get a load of this. He thinks he's falling in love with somebody. Take their feelings seriously and have the talk with them. I mean, you can have, once you're in the conversation, you can maybe make a light little joke or something, but your child, how that conversation can go, but don't minimize their feelings. Also, custom tailor the talk to your child. So, if your child has a sense of humor or not. You know what your child is like. Tailor that conversation. And same with you. I mean, you may be trying to forcibly infuse humor, but you're not actually a funny guy. Perhaps that isn't the best route for you because your kid's going to see right through you and know that you're just nervous. But it does, but to incorporate humor is a good thing. You can use media examples. There's some funny videos out there and funny TV shows that they make some jokes about sex that are appropriate. You can use that to inspire conversation. You can tell stories about your awkward first date. I mean, we've all had them. We all have these funny stories about relationships, and kids want to know that, you felt like a real dork when this guy asked you to dance and you didn't know how, because we've all experienced that. So share those stories and laugh about them. And as I said before, like with a condom or something, use props and you can be silly. There's one parent that I spoke with, I don't know, a while ago, and she was telling me that when she was probably 10 or 11 years old, really young, her mom came up to her and this was the extent of the puberty talk. You're going to start bleeding and you're going to drop an egg. And she walked away. And this girl, who's now a grown adult, said, so for weeks, she kept waiting for like an egg, like a chicken egg, to fall out of her body and to start hemorrhaging because she had no idea what was going on. So perhaps you can grab a chicken egg and come and have a conversation with your child with this chicken egg and, explain that, one day you're going to ovulate too, and then just, offer to make scrambled eggs or something really gross.
We're just like, oh my gosh, Mom, no.
Exactly. But again, you have to be that kind of parent already, that they understand your humor, that you're really not trying to freak them out.
Yeah, got to be natural. Got to be natural.
You do. You've got to be natural. But a sense of humor does kind of, make things easier to talk about and make you more approachable. So I do I encourage rather humor in your talks, in your conversations.
That sounds phenomenal, especially being able to, because that's the number one comment I get from parents is like, but it is so awkward to talk about, Braxton. How am I supposed to do this? And humor is a wonderful way to get you back into your prefrontal cortex. You have to be able to think about the joke. You have to be able to say, is this appropriate? What's my child open to? And so it helps kind of, in a sense, ground you back into, all right, we're having this awkward conversation, but I'm here and I have to use my brain to be able to have this conversation, as well as make it memorable. Yes. And also, it's not necessarily got to be the perfect joke, and they might just be like, oh my goodness, don't. Oh, you're so weird. Or you tell them about your own experience of like, this is what my first date was like, and then I did this. And it's like, you were the dumbest. They may say things like that, and don't take it personally. Be like, yeah, it was just so weird. And you know what? You're going to have some weird things too. But not taking on any type of confrontation, but just I love the thought that you're like, hey, bring humor into the conversation. Why not?
Why not? Life is short, and that sex positivity too, the sex is part of life. It's a natural part of life. And we want to make our kids not afraid of sex, but we want them to embrace the whole idea. But we want them to do it healthy and safely so that they grow up to be mature adults in healthy relationships.
Yeah.
And that's our job.
Completely. And so thinking of just one example that cracks me up a little bit. I don't have any kids, so I still have this whole pattern to go through, but I do have a younger brother. It's 10 years younger than I am.
Oh, wow.
And so one day he came up to me and he's like, so Braxton, like, how do tampons work? And I was like, yes. I was like, there's some up in the bathroom, huh? He's like, I know, I saw him. Like, I was like, let's go find out. And so we went up there and I was like, open up the package. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like embarrassed and stuff. And he opens it up and he looks at it. He's like, what is that? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what do you think? And he's like, well, this goes in the vagina somehow. And he started looking at the plunger and he pulled the thing apart versus like pushed it together. And so he's like, and then he pulled it out almost like it was still in its wrapping. And he's like, this cotton is what's supposed to get it. And he's like, how big does it get? And I was like, I don't know, throw it in the toilet.
Good for you.
So we just started laughing. We're like, holy cow, they get so big. I was like, I don't think, I'm fairly certain. In fact, I know it doesn't get that big in the vaginal canal, but that gets a lot bigger than I thought it would. Now take it out, let's throw it in the garbage because you're not supposed to put them in the toilet. But like 5 different things kind of going on. Where as you're talking about condoms, it's like, let's see how many things we can wrap this around. Like, look how big it gets. How big does it get with water? If they're open to that. But I love your thought on this. Bring humor into it. It doesn't have to be, here's the condom. The condom goes on the banana.
Right, exactly. I love what you did with the tampon. I think that's brilliant. I think that's, especially for a young boy, learning about this, they got to know too, they have to understand what the females go through, and we have to understand what the young men go through. So I love that. That's brilliant.
Thank you. I thought, well, we still laugh about it. So, it turned out to be quite well. And he still comes up and asks me questions about, females, males, and what's normal, what's not. And it really invites a question, and we have that humor together. So I think that's cool.
It was perfect. Oh, I love what you did. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, Kim, with all of the, man, you've given us so much, these resources, as well as, we've got your book and the blog that is it a blog that you do, or do you write for, what is it that you end up doing?
So I'll do a lot of guest writing, a lot of guest blogging too. So I've written for Kids in the House, for Girlology. I've written for, what else have I written for? A few other health education. Yeah. And then I do, actually on Thursday, I'm starting a video course, a video program that will be available for purchase in a couple of months. So that I'm very excited about. It's going to be kind of fun.
Will that be on Teen World Confidential?
You will be able to purchase on Teen World. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I'm doing a book talk in the Chicagoland area next week. And I'm doing a keynote speaker event for health educators. So yeah, I'm keeping busy and doing all kinds of different things. But right now, I'm focusing more on the visuals. People seem to like
the visual side of things.
The visuals, yeah.
And is that where you're based out of? I don't think I asked you. Are you in Chicago?
I'm just outside of Chicago in the suburbs, yes.
In the suburbs, outside of Chicago.
Yes, it's very cold and snowy today, yes.
I was like, you guys got hit with, did you get hit with the blizzard?
No, we were spared the blizzard.
Spared the blizzard. Whew, that's good.
Yes.
Because that seemed pretty rough.
My family's out east, so
yeah.
I've got a daughter in New York City too, so I know she was hit. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, by the time this airs, it'll be a little bit more sunny over where you're at, I hope.
Yay, let's hope.
But I'm curious, so I always end the show with, if there's one thing you could leave with parents, if they were to skip towards the end and just be like, what's one thing that you want parents to take away from, that you want all the parents to know, or all the couples to know?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the most important thing I want parents to know, or adults to know, is having these conversations are going to keep our kids healthy and safe. They're not going to make them go out and make bad decisions. They're going to empower them to make healthy decisions that align with their own values. And that's what we want. We have our values. We've had our life. It's time for our kids to live theirs. And we are there to guide them. And we have to love them up and embrace them and support them with all our heart, because that's how they're going to become healthy adults to contribute to our world.
Wonderful.
And that's why I'm doing this.
Well, I appreciate what you do. This is wonderful. I really appreciate you coming on the show and giving us some of this information and the education that you present on. This is wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you for having me and for doing your work as well. Together, we'll make some change.
Yes, we'll make some change.
Yes.
And you can do this, parents and parents to be. You can. Just start right at the beginning, little small steps. And if you haven't done it and you're like, I'm too far behind the 8 ball, nope. You can always start. Never too late to start.
Never too late.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Kim, for coming on the show.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
This has been another episode of the Birds and Bees podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions about the show, comments, or questions you would like addressed in another episode, please give us a call at 385-449-1818. Leave your voicemail and your question, or you can also email us at birdsandbeespodcast@gmail.com, or visit us online at birdsandbeespodcast.com.